Hello and welcome back to Fashion with Sort Out YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're going to be learning how to make a perfect fit long pencil skirt. So now I have my fabric folded into two, as you can see. I will start by marking out my starting line. The starting line will also serve as my waistline. I'm sorry guys, I just see that you can't see what I'm marking, but then it's just like coming down from the like 1 inch from the edge of the Ankara, and that will serve as our waistline. The next line is our hip line, and for the hip line we are marking two lines for it. First 6 inches, and then the next one is 9 inches. So this is just the best way to draft a skirt pattern. Now, the first 6 inches will serve as our upper hip, and this 9 inches will serve as the lower part of the hip. The next thing is our knee length, and this is 19 inches. So all these inches that I'm calling is from the waistline. Do we understand? So the first, the knee length is 19 inches from the waist. The next line we are imputing is our skirt length, which is 42 inches. So I'm going to mark out this 22 inches, and the remaining part of the Ankara will serve as our sewing allowance for the lining. Okay, so after all this has been done, I'm going to extend my marking to the other edge of the fold so that we can make a straight connect of our lines. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So when this has been done, the next thing to be considered is the markings of our body circumference on it. And the first thing is our waist. Waist circumference is 32 inches. So I'm going to divide the 32 by 4. That gives us 8. I'm going to add 1 inch as our that allowance, and then add 2 inches as our sewing allowance. Next, we move to our hip measurement. So hip circumference rather. So our hip is 39 divided by 2. That gives us 9.75. I'm then going to add 2 inches as the sewing allowance, just as we did to the waist. And so remember that I said we have the upper part of the hip to be 6 inches and the lower part to be 9 inches. So what I have on the 6 inches is what I will extend down to the 9 inches lower part of the hip. Now to our knee length. So what's our hip minus 1.5, that's what we'll impute on the knee length. That gives us 8.25. So I'm going to mark that 8.25 and then add 2 inches to it as sewing allowance. What I have on the knee length is what I'm going to extend to the length, to the hem of the skirt. I mean the length of the skirt. So that's 8.25, then the sewing allowance of 2 inches. So right now I'm going to connect all the lines together, just as you can see me doing it. I'm going to connect all the points marked out, and then to connect the nail to the hip, I'm going to be making use of my cuff ruler so that we can have that perfect hip cuff. Do you see the way I place my cuff ruler? So I'm just going to make it connect and then turn the roller to join the hip to the waist, just as you see me doing it. So after this has been done, I think we have our skirt pattern drafted out perfectly. I'm then going to pick my scissors and then make a cut of our front piece. Okay guys, now that we have our front piece, we will then move to our back piece. Now I have my fabric folded into two, just like I did to the front, but this time around I added extra 2 inches to the front of the skirt to serve as our zipper allowance. With that 2 inches, I'm also going to carve out my butts on it. So now I have placed my front on the folded material, and then I'm just making sure that I have the exact 2 inches. So after this has been done, I'm just going to use the front to cut the back on this other side, as you can see the way I placed it. So now I'm going to pick up my scissors now and cut everything out so that we can have a clear picture of what we want to do. Okay guys, now that we have it cut out, I'm sure you can have a clearer picture of what we are doing now. So before I remove my front from the back, from the folded part, you know the skirt is on fold now. So from the folded part of the front piece, I'm going to come down by 1 inch from the waist. Do we see? So on that side where it's folded, you can see the way I place my tape roll. I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and from that 1 inch I'm going to connect that 1 inch back to the waistline at this other side, just like we do to trouser. Do we get? And this is done so that it will be able to accommodate, it will come under the belly, and it won't disturb the tummy. It will not disturb at that tummy side. By the time you remove that, it will sit well on the waist. So I'm also going to extend the initial waist point to the others, the initial starting point to the back point, so that we can have it well. So what I'll do next is cut what I just drafted out. I mean the 1 inch that I came down with from the waist to the edge of the skirt. Now the next thing I'm going to do is pick my chalk and then make a I would draw a straight line on the edge of the front so that we can have our direction to our back, because I'm still going to remove the front from it now so that we can do all that we need to do on the back piece. Now I have the line drawn out, right? I'm just going to take my tape rule and input on all the lines that I did to the front, the waistline, the hip lines, and the knee length, and then the skirt length, just like we did to the front, so that we are doing this so that we can have direction as to how to go to the back. Now to the knee length, we had 19 in the front. The same thing we are going to mark out on the back, and then the whole skirt length, I'm going to mark it out, and then have the allowance we left on the front on the back also. This is for our lining. Do we understand? Okay, so after this has been done, the next thing I'm going to do now is come back to my waist line. So on that waist, okay, I think we can have clearer picture now. On that waist, to the 2 inches marked out, I will mark out 1 inch. Do we see it? So from that center line, I'm going to come out by 1 inch, and on the butt, on the hip line, I'm not going to mark anything. I'll just take my ruler and connect that 1 inch to the 2 inches on the hip. Remember, we added 2 extra inches to serve as our zip allowance, and then our butts to accommodate our butts. So 1 inch that I added to the waist side will serve as the zipper allowance, and then from the hip, I'm going to on the knee length also, I marked out 1 inch, which will serve as our sewing allowance on that place. Do we get? Joining allowance, I mean. So I'm just going to connect everything down. I hope you understand what I just said. So let me just recap before, as I'm marking the other places. So on the waistline, I came out by 1 inch for my zipper allowance, and on the butt, I left the 2 inches there. So I made a connect of that 1 inch on the waist to the hip, 2 inches, and then on my knee length also, I marked out 1 inch that will serve as my joining allowance of the back. Do we get now? So what I will do next now is take my scissors and then cut out. So this is basically how to cut a perfect skirt. I mean a perfect pencil skirt, even if it's short or long. The same approach is applicable to get a nice shape for the skirt. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to cut the lining to the clothes. Now, if you notice that after I marked out the accurate length we need for the skirt, which is 42, I left the remaining Ankara that is left. Like that was like 4 inches. Now I deliberately did that so that it will serve as a continuation of a lining. There's a way it brings beauty to a skirt when from the slit you are seeing the lining and the Ankara continuation. So now for my lining, I cut out the exact length that we need for the as the skirt length, which is 42. Now, what I did now is measure what is left on the Ankara, which is 4 inches. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these 4 inches from the lining that we have. So that is to show, sorry guys, that is to show that the Ankara will continue the lining. So now for the Ankara that is left, I said it's 4 inches, and then I cut out 42 inches on the lining. So in order for the Ankara to replace it, we're going to be removing 4 inches from the lining. Do we get what I just explained? So the 4 inches that we are going to remove will be replaced by the leftover of the Ankara when we sew it. So I'm just going to add the 4 inches. I'm just going to mark the 4 inches from the edge of the skirt and then cut it out. So ultimately at the end of it all, for my lining will have 38 inches. So that 38 inches, by the time we line it, will give us, the Ankara will give us total length of 42 inches. Do we get? So this is basically how to cut the lining to an Ankara that you added allowance to it. So guys, we are coming to the end of this video. Thank you all for staying true to the end. I hope you got value watching. If you did, don't hesitate to give this video a thumbs up. And if you are here to subscribe to this channel, wait no further, subscribe to this channel and also press on the notification bell so that anytime I upload new video, you get to be notified. Thank you everyone for staying true. So here is our lining and the Ankara also. Thank you so much for staying true. See you in my next tutorial. Bye.